Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or whenever it is that you're listening to us. Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, the live show, number 294. And with me is the brain trust of the universe, Stephanie Smith.
Tim's leaving now.
That's right.
Also, Mr. Robert Cole.
As soon as I leave, the average intelligence will go up.
The bell curve shifts. I would have to say, Tim, honestly, it would shift the wrong way.
No.
I'm dragging down the curve, man. I'm dragging down the curve. Well, actually, when I was thinking about a topic and things to discuss with today, because after doing 4 daily clubhouse things, your mind is like totally with every topic in the universe for some reason. When you're when you're having to talk about something versus just dealing with it, it keeps your mind swirling a lot more. So I've enjoyed my VR headset a lot more by shooting people in the game Population 1, just so you know. And I've gotten really good at it. I don't know why, but I'm like, anyway, that's my story. How is everyone? And Robert, thank you for getting the list out at a time that I could actually spend time with it. Although you said I actually came late to the party because you had it out 6 hours before today's show.
That's a rarity.
I've only been spending the last half hour
as opposed to 6 minutes before the show,
or 6 minutes after the show.
Or 6 minutes after the show. Yeah, exactly. Don't you love how we bitch about the free service you provide?
I know, right? I'm sorry, this is free. And it's not landing in the time. I did throw out the fact that I felt more so than ever this week because I got my first vaccination this week, which I was totally stoked about. That it's amazing how something as simple as that changes your perspective on things. You know, where you're talking about the wishful thinkings to the, oh my gosh, I can actually try to plan. I'm looking at a calendar and I can actually say second dose 2 weeks after. What's after that? And actually think about it rather than just wonder about it. And that brought to mind a little bit of what I wanted to think about this week would be interesting is there's a moving timeline now. I mean, I was pessimistically, January, February, thinking, oh, we'll be lucky at the end of this year to think about doing kind of stuff, or, that people are going to be feeling safe enough to go out, general population of those. And now it's like that got bumped up a little bit. I mean, now it's kind of summerish in some ways. It depends on how log jammed. Oh, puppy.
Oh.
Big puppy. How fast now that they're opening the floodgates of everybody. I think that seems to be the consensus. 22 states or something, or just come on.
Ready or not, here they come.
Yeah, and even though I was very impressed with what I went through in the sense of organization, lanes of people based on time zones or times of the day that they're coming for their appointment, and the progress of the little green vested people telling you which way to go and stuff. I can see that overwhelmed.
Question:
yeah.
Did you get your vaccination through AppSumo?
Well, they did have a special. I'm just saying.
I knew it.
I got my extra 10% off for being it's you, Lauren. Please have a cup of coffee. Take a shot.
Okay. So wait, how did you do your shot?
Okay, and this is probably indicative of everything. Well,
this will fascinate people. Tim,
at first, I dropped my shorts and like, no, it's not there. Yeah. It's not there.
I'm on the edge of my seat. The back edge of my seat.
It does show how crazy all this is, because literally it was a friend that gave us a phone number that wasn't published yet for our county's new platform for distribution. I kid you not. Yeah, through AppSumo, right? No, it just shows, because right down here, there's something like 17 different places you can get a shot. And now all the health providing services are now saying, oh, we can schedule you for a shot now. So there's like this, it's overwhelming, the diversity of what do I do? I mean, there's people waiting until 3 a.m. to call CVS Pharmacy. There's people opening up at 7 a.m. to go over and call Publix down here, which is another grocery store pharmacy combination. You have the county, you have the federal, you have Walmart. You have, and then you chase down other counties too. Other counties have different ways. There's a free-for-all in the early interior counties that you just show up and you can get a shot. Then there's other counties that are backlogged for another 2 weeks before they even schedule you. It is pandemonium. And that's just drives me crazy. But all said and done, the idea of this week was, in my mind, we've been talking about what it's going to be like when people start showing up at our doorstep. how prepared is everybody with that change in timeline? Because I know I got 2 clients that are flat-footed right now. They really thought they were going to spend more time doing the stuff that they hadn't done till now because of finances, and now they're, oh my gosh, we didn't upgrade our technology. We didn't add this. Hey, good morning, Adele.
Good morning.
We didn't do all these things you've been telling us we need to do, Lauren, and now we got to get the car back on the track, and we didn't replace the engine and swap out the tires and refuel, and I just didn't know if that was just something that was happening with me, with them, or whether that seems to be maybe some other people's issue as well. I don't know. I'll leave it there.
Well, I mean,
I think that's the norm.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, there's a couple things going on here from my perspective, right? I mean, first, I just posted the headline in the show notes. There is a, sorry, I'm getting a weird echo, by the way.
Oh. I'm turning things down here.
So, oh, wow, that's really unnerving. I'm so sorry. The story that I posted was about Disney. California Adventure has reopened, and it's $75 to get in and $25 for parking. There are no discounts for children. There are no rides open. All you can do is walk around, buy food, buy from the vendors, and you can wave to the characters from a distance. And the minute tickets went on sale, the website went down.
Yep.
Because it couldn't handle the load. And when they were able to get the website back up, tickets sold out, literally in about an hour, hour and a half. So, I mean, there's a lot of pent up demand. I think we are in for a pretty epic summer in terms of travel demand, in terms of hospitality demand and the like. There's going to be some regional variation. Undoubtedly, there's going to be some segment variation. I am still a little on the bearish side with regard to, business travel, generally speaking, with a lot of caveats around that. A lot. But yeah, I don't want to say if you haven't done things to get ready for this, you missed your chance. I would say you need to be doing it right now. Because what's the old line? The best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today, right?
Right.
So start planting trees, man.
Yeah. I also would throw into the mix of this the fact that as I looked at what we should take advantage of a lot of the offers I know that are out there that are still existing because of current scenario. Easy cancellation, super discounted opportunities, and so forth. And should we snarf stuff up, knowing that we have flexibility? And if so, what is good times? Because, for our travel interests, September, October is usually good because the kids are back in school. It's getting into the fall season. Weather's nice, temperate. If we do something domestic, it's kind of nice. There's no real bad weather anywhere kind of thing. But I can't really count on that because there's this whole mix of work from home technology that shifted some of the work environment for some people. There's also the fact that kids are a mix, although there's an eagerness for kids to go back to school, no doubt, and should, because I think that whole social interaction in school is important, but there is probably that flexibility of them not having to if, the parent wants to keep them off for a couple of weeks. So how is that going to influence off season? Is there really going to be an off season, or is there going to be a dip? Is there just going to be a constant, as more and more people feel comfortable with travel? It's just for my own personal planning travel is a challenge to consider. When you start implementing that into a business model, other than, let's work the rates and make sure that we're available in market, it makes it very challenging. I don't know. What do you guys think about the timelines?
I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the cancellation policies. And if we're going to go, who's going to be the first one to tighten the reins a little bit on that, because I think we talked about it on the Clubhouse, how to take into consideration your cancellation rates into your different platforms. And for me on the branded side, how hard it is to understand the full impact of those cancellation rates. So I don't know. I don't really have the right answer, but I'm curious. I'm sure there's discussions, especially with the big brands, about, when to start tightening those just a tad.
Yeah, well, we were talking about Clubhouse. Oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
What we were talking about in Clubhouse is the HSMA advisory board sent out, I think it was the revenue advisory board. One of the comments that had come up is that one company started testing the waters, not for a full prepaid and save rate, but for just putting a prepayment on the first night. And they said it was going just as easily as ever before. Nobody was batting an eyelash at it. I do think that we're still going to have some flexibility, probably, if it's reasonable at the time, because you don't want to make enemies. You want to make friends and customers for life. But I think that that's really good news. And people should try it, because a lot of the times when people are not doing the right marketing things, it's because they don't have any wherewithal to do it. And to get some income ahead of time would be so helpful. And I also want to mention that yesterday I was on the HSMA South Carolina board call, and the point of view, the first part of the conversation was all about how are we going to get housekeeping people, because we are getting full and we don't have anybody to clean the room. And people are saying, hey, I've been offered director of sales at 50%, come back at 50% of what I was paid before, and do half housekeeping and front desk and DOS. And of course that is hindering your possibility of doing sales and marketing, but it's also, you're probably already paying a more than minimum wage for that person. Why can't we just pay our housekeepers what they deserve to be paid? I just wonder. I know it's very challenging with the unemployment issues, and a lot of people may be staying home because of their kids, but there's got to be a better way of addressing this housekeeping deficit, because it's certainly not creating the best environment for our guests.
Yeah,
Joshua.
I think the labor situation is going to be very interesting. This is not my area of expertise, so I'm going to say one thing and then I'm going to shut up and listen to others who know a lot more about this than I do. When you talk about, managing housekeeping and things like that, but a couple of my clients have had some pretty good success by simply contracting that out to local cleaning services, working with local, not having the housekeepers be employees of the company, but actually using contract labor in those specific cases, and have had some success with it. Again, not my area of expertise, so
yeah,
that's literally all I can say about that easily.
Even the companies are having trouble getting housekeepers.
Right.
And, what I just really found interesting about it, and sorry I didn't make that point when I said it before, is I didn't really think there would be a Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International call when we're talking about hiring housekeepers. I mean, that's to the point that we've gotten in this crisis. In the meantime, we have like tons of people at the border wanting to get in and get some work. And I just wonder if we couldn't just solve those two problems together.
And the housekeeping is the most important. I've always maintained. Anything else you do in a hotel, maybe some food preparation items also fall in this category. But if you get it wrong, right, you have a poorly trained staff, that's very difficult to recover from, as opposed to, oops, we accidentally did this, we forgive you. Something's dirty, that's crossing a line. The challenge is, what happened to all the housekeepers, who were laid off? What did they do? Right? Amazon hired 600,000 people in the US or something like that, $15 an hour, very, very attractive benefit package at a minimal, a very, very low cost, right? And it's physically demanding work and that sort of thing, but housekeeping is too. So and I've got to think, when people have a choice of coming back and, we're going to do this with your shifts and you're going to be gone, you're going to, versus something that's continuous and steady. I don't know. There's going to be, I think all of this that we're talking about, you're going to have kind of the winners and losers, right? I think, the large convention hotels in the major cities and things like that, that's still going to be a while. And they're going to have this lag. All these resorts, leisure destinations, the less dense you are, the longer term stay, all that's going to go. But from what we were saying at the beginning, I think the school thing is going to be dramatic, because I think all this work, remote school stuff, it's going to be get your ass in a chair in front of a teacher in a classroom, right? So I think that's going to really constrain a lot, everyone with school age kids in a big way, and a lot of college students, right? There'll still be online things, but I think there's going to be a big, let's get back in class, let's get back on campus and do that, which is going to be a constraint, right?
I agree. I agree on the primary and secondary school situation. I do some work with a couple of colleges. I think on the college side, you're seeing colleges. You're seeing changes that you're seeing colleges that charge a lot for housing, that are expensive for on campus and the like. And I think there's going to be, and let's be really clear, when I say dramatic is relative, right? But I think there's going to be dramatic shift of a whole bunch of college age kids who are realizing I could do this much more economically without being in person and the like. And we're going to see where that nets out. The reason I say dramatic is relative, when you think about industries that are, $100 billion industries, hundreds of $billion industries, right? A 10% shift is a huge number, right? So, when people hear dramatic, they think, 50%, 75%. No. We might only be talking, we might only be talking 10%, but 10% of a, I don't know. We are, in the US alone, we are a $26 trillion economy. 10% of a $26 trillion economy, or 10% of a chunk of a $26 trillion economy, is an awfully large number and could have all kinds of ripple effects in all kinds of directions.
Yeah, healthcare, education, travel, all are going to have dramatic impacts coming out of this.
And not to be a Debbie Downer to this, there are some perfect storm components to this dialogue. You have very fatigued, overstretched people that were maintained during this process that are still there as we begin to emerge in business. So now I wouldn't say at the end of what they've been going through, but for the ordeal that they have been existing in, now business is escalating high and fast. Add that to what you just discussed, which is a limitation as to resources available to bring on, because we lost a lot of people that were from our industry, as you pointed out, like Amazon as an example, that went somewhere else and are not coming back. So we have a diminished pool of resource to bring people back as we need them. Now, yes, not everybody's coming back at the same time or in the same level, so the demand isn't equidistant on everything, but those that need it now, and they need it to scale again. And then we're going to be approaching, unfortunately, the ideology of how we used to do it, which is, okay, this is our package or not package, no existence of a package. This is our rate or diminished rate or whatever it is. And people are going to do what you just said, Robert. They're going to look and go, do I really want to go back to that? Do I even want to go tackle working back into housekeeping or engineering or, food and beverage or whatever with those conditions anymore? I enjoyed when I was a bartender, but you know what? I'm a heck of an insurance salesman now, or whatever. You know what I mean? and it's less stressful and less temporary in the sense that mercurial, going up and down. And so for that, we might find ourselves where we might have the demand that we've been desperate for. We might not have the full means to truly facilitate what we're doing without really changing how we approach our labor force, how we approach our training. Because, go ahead, Dale, please.
I think a lot of people who are bartenders say that they've made more bartending than they did with their master's degree. But as far as housekeeping goes, someone who was a previous general manager in the Midwest had said that her housekeepers at that time were getting paid under $9 an hour. And, that is tough to make a living on. And maybe we really need to really support our team and say, hey, we're here for you and we want to support you and we appreciate what you're doing. And I want you to come to us when you have challenges to deal with, and let's see how we can work them out. Just make them feel, especially they're saying that guests are really hostile these days. Make sure that they have some emotional tools that can help them, excel and get through those times without taking it personally, but just reframing their existence in the hotel as not just somebody that is a body that cleans rooms, that is like a machine does, but a human being who is a healer and an ambassador to happiness, and just look at that person not as somebody that is attacking you, but somebody who's just in pain and frustrated and needs some relief. And how can you, as a hospitality hero, listen to what the real pain is coming from and see how you can make them feel better? Because, you know, the abuse that the teams have been taking during the past year has been pretty phenomenal, on top of the extra hours, the lower wages, and everything else. And another thing, if we can support them with maybe getting more tips, find ways to make that happen, maybe with an app that says, do you want to add a tip for your housekeeping team? Or, you know, I think a lot of the rooms, I understand from a Clubhouse chat that the envelopes have been taking away, you know, hi, this is Maria. I gave my loving care to your room before your stay. I hope you find everything comfortable. And it has a little envelope if they want to leave anything. Those kinds of personalizations were taken away. And sure enough, people are saying they're not leaving tips. So maybe we need to find an opportunity for them to make that happen. And maybe also inspiring them to smile at the guests and sparkle sunshine on them. Because if they start seeing the housekeeping team as somebody that contributed to their great experience, they will naturally feel more positive about tipping. And then they maybe won't leave.
Yeah, but we can't put that ownership back on the guests, first of all. And then second of all, I would say that if we're not doing, you know, overnight cleaning stays, then there's less value there. I mean, even before the pandemic, you know, my husband was working in a 1,200 room convention hotel, and they took away the overnight, the daily cleaning, even before the pandemic, and nobody even batted an eyelash. So, I mean, I feel like we have to, as hoteliers, find different ways to, you know, do more with less housekeepers, maybe.
Well, and that's a strategy. I mean, there's a major Reit I was speaking with. That's the plan going forward, right? Let's not have daily housekeeping, and let's charge for it, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm of the other mind for it is that everybody going out to business or as a guest, the last thing I want to do for them is to panhandle my staff, in servers and housekeeping and so forth, because I'm not paying them enough. I think that's a negative aspect to the hotel in its entirety. I'm paying to be at the hotel, and now I'm being basically everybody. And please, I'm putting this with a grain of salt. That always, when going, I remember the bellman that used to deliver my bags, and you would tip them. And the doorman and what have you. It's not that aspect that I'm contesting. I would see that as a overt. This place isn't paying you enough to do your job, so I gotta supplement it. You know, I will tip bartender to make a drink, and even though I know he's getting paid, but I also know that the schema is for him to have tips based on the quality of what he provides as service. Obviously, you know, if I complain about him, he's not going to keep his job. But all that said and done, I think from a larger scale of perspective to this, how are the brands? I mean, Steph, are you seeing them trying to pipe in anything that other than, you know, co-share marketing and things like that? Are they doing anything to help begin the ramp up process for some of these triaged franchisees that are like, okay, now that business might be coming back, or we have to plan for it, this is what we have as offer opportunities?
No, I mean, I try to stay out of the operation side as much as I can, but, you know,
Smart woman.
You know, I still feel like a lot of the brands, I mean, they are doing some hiring back in certain areas, but they're certainly not staffed to where they were to be able to, I don't think, to be able to take on, you know, what they were doing before from a support standpoint. I think they're still running fairly slim in terms of staffing. So, I mean, they're probably in the same boat, but, you know.
Well, and I think everyone's very eager. I mean, Biden came out and said yesterday, he went 200,000 doses, right? Or 200 million doses in the first 100 days, which is double what the thing was. And hey, by 4th of July, everything's good. And that may be accelerating. But there's still a large chunk of people who aren't going to get vaccinated, right? Which is it's
Right.
that's going to be a very interesting headwind, right? Because that can start slowing things down. And
Well,
if you start getting
especially
these weird outbreaks regionally, that's going to cause problems. And I think a lot of folks I've been speaking with they're still kind of waiting, right? Which is, they're playing chicken, right? They see all this stuff
right.
coming, but they want to wait, and they're going to turn at the last minute and say, "Let's get going," which is, what happens in games of chicken, right?
I mean, I
Well,
live in a
the
very conservative area in Western Colorado, and there's definitely a consensus that, oh, cases are down. I don't need it, like
Edison, wait,
yeah. So they don't see it as
just a moment.
they're putting the ownership on other people, and they're like, oh, it's better. So I'm just, even at my husband's hotel, the majority of the staff who are eligible to get them, as of 2 weeks ago, are just like, oh, I guess I don't need to now. And there's the sense of urgency has dropped, so they're just not doing it.
That's
yeah,
how
the
the variant.
baseline. Yeah, the
Because-
I know
baseline.
that, and I can't get mine. I'm still,
The
I'm on
virus
wait.
and the virus loves that approach.
Yeah, exactly. The baseline consensus that I've been reading, I do a lot of work with the Conference Board, which is a big economic research firm. The baseline consensus among economists right now is that the summer should be pretty great. And this isn't just for the hospitality industry. This is generally for the economy. The concern is that the fall could be bad again because of all the things we're talking about. So, one of the pieces of advice I'm talking with my clients about, talking with all kinds of people about, is, we're going to have to remain nimble. Like 2021 probably isn't a baseline for what things will look like in 2022, and probably isn't a baseline for what things will look like in 2023. Much like 2020, 2021 is going to be somewhat distinct unto itself, and we have to manage to the realities of this year. And then, as we get into 2022 and beyond, maybe we get into, and God, I hate this phrase, and I know we all do, a new normal. But I don't think 2021 is going to be a new normal. I think it's going to be a different kind of thing than what we had in 2020, and also a different kind of thing of what we're going to have in 2022. So we kind of need to be prepared for things are going to be great at points, and there's the possibility. And when I say it's the baseline consensus, by the way, this is like they're putting the odds at 40. They're putting the odds at like 40%. It's just that they're putting the odds of everything else at less than 40%. So it's not the overwhelming odds are this. It's just the one that is more likely than anything else. And so we are going to have to remain flexible. We're going to have to remain nimble. We're going to have to remain agile to make sure we're set up for whatever occurs, and we're able to respond to whatever occurs.
And that's the challenge with I think the hospitality industry right now. I don't know. I mean, certainly, I'm sure the senior, C-suite teams at, Marriott and Hyatt and Hilton and all the others, and the Aimbridges, they're having strategic discussions, really trying to do some scenario planning on where do we go, and here are the gaps. But the challenge is the hotel, the front line really managing the properties in these distinct locations, because you get a group like Aimbridge, they have 1,500 hotels. There's not one size fits all here.
Correct.
Right? It is what is going on in all these, because again, if you have a hotel where it's an international gateway, well, great. If you have things open and you start getting international travel, that's fantastic. If you have a bunch of unvaccinated people who are getting exposed, now maybe there will be very strict rules for you have to be vaccinated and have all sorts of things to come into the country. But boy, you get some breaches of that, and you've got the little blooms in the fall, which will be not catastrophic to the, but emotionally damaging.
Actually,
I'll say that. I want to jump in for 1 second, Lauren. I just want to jump in for 1 second on this, because you said an important phrase, Robert, that I think people need to focus on, which is scenario planning. And the reason I bring this up is there are obviously very sophisticated ways of doing scenario planning. There's very there's processes that you can follow that I endorse. I actually work with people on and the like. At the same time, even at the property level, you can do some really simple scenarios of what do we do if demand goes up to 25% of normal? What do we do if demand goes 25% above normal? What do we do if demand falls by 25% relative to forecast?
Three,
That's what
best
I'm saying.
case, worst case, and
That's kind of what I'm
case.
saying, right? So it's, just kind of plan ahead. And as the old expression goes, right, plans are useless. Planning is essential. As you do the planning exercise, you will get, you will set yourself up to be prepared depending on what occurs, even if the actual scenario differs from the three, the best case, worst case, and baseline case that you worked on.
I'm not
And-
disagreeing with that planning mentality, and I guess you have to plan for last minute too, because even now, like we're seeing so many hotels in a lot of different markets, it's completely dependent on the weather. And if
Sure.
the weather's going to be, if it rains, you got 50% cancellation rate. If it stays warm, you see 50 room pickup same day. I'm still seeing a lot of destinations that are still having super last minute. So yeah, you kind of have to plan for but that's the hard thing because you still got the staffing and you're trying to balance I'm not going to know if I'm going to have the pickup until 24 hours in advance, and that's still happening in a lot of markets.
I got great advice once. When I worked at Wyndham, my first year at Wyndham, my team, I started just before just before Memorial Day weekend, and I was running digital marketing and things like that, and we were running around like crazy people, my team. Because the major promotion for the summer was not yet ready to go live. We didn't have the assets to put up on the website. We didn't have all the copy. We didn't have all these things because we were coordinating the efforts of 15 different brand managers because we had 15 different brands, right? And so we're scrambling at the last minute. And the next year, the same thing happened. The same thing happened. We were sitting in a meeting, and one of the folks said, see, this always happens to us. The brands do this to us. The brands do that to us. This happens year after year after year. And my boss happened to be sitting there and said, well, I have a question. If we know it happens every year, why are we continually surprised by it?
Right.
Why didn't we build in plans? Why didn't we plan for, come up with some planning that says, because Stephanie, you're exactly right. I wrote a piece about this for Hotel Recovery literally just the other day about what an agile mindset really is and what an agile framework really looks like, and how you become more agile. If we know that things are going to be last minute, if we know that things are going to be a scramble from time to time, then we should really try to look at how can we set up our operations to accommodate the things that always happen. That's really, trying to predict the future, especially these days, I think is useless. Trying to be prepared for a bunch of different futures and set up our operations and set up our marketing and set up our rev management and set up our sales and the like to adapt to the changing realities puts you in a stronger position overall. It's not easy, but it's coming at it with that mindset to start from.
And being transparent with the staff so they understand.
Correct.
Here's what we're doing, and they aren't getting whipsawed in the process as well, right? You've got to have everybody on the same page and go, here's what we think is going to happen. It could go here. We've thought about these things and just prepare, because you could start, we may need to have people come in extra days if that is, are you guys okay with that? And here's what the compensation is going to be, or it's overtime or whatever. But just so people know, hey, those weekends or something, we may need you or we may not. And then here's what's going to happen. But you don't get into a situation where it's like, 3 days out, damn it, come in. And then, the weather's bad. We don't need you the day before. You aren't going to get paid, which I don't want to say is the norm, but happens. Frequently.
I think, and then maybe, I apologize. I had a big sign at the door that said, please do not disturb. And our next door neighbor has to tell me something. I'm like, great. Sorry about that. Our next door business neighbor.
The shot you got through AppSumo wasn't the COVID vaccine, Lauren.
Right. Okay. So anyway, I want to bring up something here. It was commented on that in Times, the article said that our technology and some components have accelerated by 10 years for the 10 months that we've been down and so forth, that there's just been acceleration of technology. I think from a lot of reasons, I think hospitality is yet to really do their growing up yet. We survived. We stayed on life support, whatever it was, for those who tried to maintain business during this process, those that closed, and now they're coming back to business. And the world has changed. We know this. And then methodology and expectations and everything else and dialogue has all changed. And it's now time for, I think, our industry just to future forecasting, prognostication, totally my opinion. We haven't grown up yet. As an industry, we have not grown up yet. And we are trying to go back to what we used to do of, I'm sorry, Susie Q, housekeeper, I'll put you on hold. And if I need you, I need you. If I don't, I don't. I'm not going to pay for difference, is gone. Okay. If I need Susie on hold, I got to pay Susie on hold. And I need to start training people when they come back, not just hoping that they figure it out when I brought them on board in the warm body. And I need to go over and make decisions now, not with what our industry is typically doing, which is let other people do it first and see how it works out for them. You need to decide now, are you going to enforce vaccination requirement, or are you going to go through the political foray of not knowing what the heck that means? Because I listen to a lot of people from doing all these things now, in the clubhouses and everything else, and then other way. And there is a polarity still. It didn't go away from the election. Okay. It just went in different ways. And there are very much people are not going to get vaccinated because in their mind, it's not vaccination. It's a chip. If in worst case scenario, and the best case scenario, it's not vaccination anyway, because I can still get it. Yes, they don't understand the common sense logic of this side has gone away. The reality of it is that there are people that have perceptions and they feel valid in their perceptions, and that is going to influence how we do business. And flat out, there are people that say that if I'm forced or mandated to have my job back, them, and I'm going to go someplace else. And that's going to have an influence on the people we have coming back to our work, not because they may not have been good workers, not because they don't want to come back to hospitality, just because they have an opinion about what they think they should be told to do. And some people just don't want to be told. It's not like they're against it. They just don't want to be told or forced. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying bless you to Stephanie for.
Oh, bless Stephanie. Yeah. But these things are going to be influences that are going to force us to do something as an industry we don't normally do, which is the wait and see mentality. If any industry has a wait and see mentality, it's the poster child example of hospitality. Very few people do that first.
So here's the thing. I'm going to take a contrarian point of view because
I hope
partly for fun. When we say our industry is slow to respond to these things, I mean, you're not wrong, right? I wouldn't dispute that. There's a lot of different things we run into. There's a last mile problem. Most hotel owners, right? When we talk about the hotel industry, with all due respect, Marriott is not in the hotel industry. Hilton is not in the hotel industry. Wyndham is not in the hotel. They're in the franchise industry, right? The business owner is the person who owns the rooms, right? And in many cases, and that's no disrespect to Marriott, by the way. I think Marriott's a great company. I think Wyndham's a great company. But they're franchisors, right? Mm-hmm. The cost of taking care of a lot of the technology falls on the small business owner or the REIT or whomever owns the asset. And so when we say the industry isn't responding, I think the industry is responding great. They're just, pushing the cost to other people. Hear me out though, but where they're challenged is, people are taking advantage of that. I mean, where did Airbnb come from? Mm-hmm. Where did MetaSearch come from? Where did all of these things come from of people who said, there's ways to streamline this process. This is something I talk about all the time in what I do all day, every day. I do a lot of work with a lot of companies, both in the industry and outside the industry, on what is referred to as digital transformation. And I will say this till I'm blue in the face. There's no such thing as digital transformation. There is business transformation that is brought about because digital exists, right? Google doesn't have a digital transformation problem. Airbnb doesn't have a digital transformation problem. Uber doesn't have a digital transformation problem. They grew up in a world where digital always existed. And so they built the business because of that fact. And so the same thing has to be true. If you're a hotel owner, what would your hotel look like if you were starting from scratch today? It doesn't mean that's easy to do. It means you have to start thinking about, what does a hotel look like in the longer term? What do we need to do differently? How do we need to think about it differently from an operations perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a rev management perspective, from a sales perspective, from a distribution perspective, from a branded versus non-branded perspective, et cetera, to say, what is the thing that our customers actually need based on these realities? And that's how you're going to make sure you specifically as the business owner succeed in the longer term.
Okay, I agree with you. And I will quote Spock in The Wrath of Khan. He thinks he's a brilliant tactician, but he thinks in two dimensions. I'm talking about a higher level of thought process to this.
Oh, we're going to throw down here.
Okay. here's my example to point of how we have to grow up. I have a management team. I have an ownership. I have a franchise. I have operations at the level of the property and who owns the operators, whose payroll are they on, who's the point of truth. We have existed in this. I feel like an outfielder in a baseball game where the ball landed between three outfield players. I thought you had it. I thought you had it. I thought you had it. Oh, well, they got a home run. We do this every day. It's a dysfunctional correlation. There are strong ownerships, and I'll make an exception to everything I just said. There's strong ownerships, there's strong management, and there's strong franchise. All of them have different places that they play depending upon who they are at that time. The reality of it is that nobody is wanting to be responsible for it, but they want to take credit for when it's successful. So what happens is there's the failure syndrome of blame, and there's the credit syndrome of self-preservation. That maturity of our industry has to change to you're in charge. You have the call. I know I own the building, but I'm going to hold you to if it fails. And that doesn't really happen in clarity. A lot of times, I thought management was going to do it. I thought ownership, I thought franchise took care of that. The lack of clarity of definition of how we operate as an industry is got to mature, because there's no issue, as you pointed out with Airbnb. There is no issue with Google. They know who's responsible for what happens, and they take initiative as to what they're responsible for. We as an industry tend not to do that. I'll flunder around all the time about us not adopting technology and all of us, being slow and incestuous about our technologies and so forth. That's a given. That we're not unique enough in that sense to say we're the only ones that have that problem.
The incentives are misaligned with
Correct.
the objectives, right?
Correct.
So the challenge was years ago, and I remember back, there's electricity and water and things when those are wheels, but hotel groups used to own and manage, the brands used to own and manage property, right? That's how it was. External forces, predominantly investors, said, whoa, hang on, you've got these big expensive assets hanging on that balance sheet, cut those off, and whoa, look at this, we still have the revenue coming in, and we don't have, this is great stuff. So as Tim said, Marriott's a franchising organization now, right? I think out of their 7,000 or 8,000 properties, they have like a couple hundred that they own, right? They have more than they have. Maybe
they have a lot that they manage, but
maybe a couple thousand, a couple thousand that they manage, right? So maybe the third quarter that they manage, right? So, but anyway, those are very different, and even they treat it very differently on their 10Ks, right? You go, hey, here's what's going on with the owned ones, here's what's the management, here's what's happening with franchising. But you look at a group like, well, let's just look at the big guy. Host is Marriott's largest REIT, right? And Hilton's and Hyatt's, I believe. Their business model and financials are very different from Marriott, even though they work. And then you look at Aimbridge, right? Who's probably the largest third-party management company for Marriott and Hilton and maybe Hyatt too. I don't know. All three of those groups are really, really different. They're all really big. They're all doing the same. Sometimes they're all in the same hotel, right? But all those are, and that's how you get the, wait a second, to get our return on investment to support our shareholders, we got to do X. And that's sometimes good for the whole, and someone's got to take it for the team. And many times that might be the owner, right? In other cases, it might be, hey, we're going to go, it mostly is. Yeah. Because again, they're most fragmented and they don't have necessarily, I mean, even you look at Host, how many properties they, it's a fraction of what Aimbridge or Marriott have, right? So they don't say, hey, we've got 2,000 hotels, we're going to take our trucks and go home. That's not an option. So everybody's on a different scheme, and that creates complexity that you have to deal with, which other industries do. Amazon doesn't have to deal with that. Right. So Google doesn't necessarily have to deal with it.
The best example I like about all of this is the fall of Rome, history bound to repeat itself, wasn't because nobody liked the roads or the organization or the forums or everything else. It was the fact that they let the Gauls run everything, and the Gauls woke up one day and go, geez, we're running your military, we're running your infrastructure, we're running everything, but we're not running everything. We're not in charge of everything. So let's just take over Rome. And
actually, that's a bad retelling of history. The Roman Empire didn't fall until the 1450s because the Ottoman Empire was just the extension of the Roman Empire.
consolidation of
The
both
point
fell
being,
before that
but no,
because of
hear me
Gaul.
out. The point
And
being,
Tim remembers that. He was there.
I do. I was there. Exactly. Exactly. I learned at Robert's knee. The
One minute
point
you're there
here
and you see
being-
the Gauls go by.
the point here being is we're seeing an evolution, right? We are seeing an evolution. Robert's exactly right. A lot of what you're asking to change, Lauren, isn't going to change until Wall Street incentivizes the publicly traded companies to change the way they operate their business. Marriott is getting rewarded for the things that they're doing. Marriott's evolving into a different kind of company. I think it's really cool what they're doing from one perspective. But Marriott is a loyalty program masquerading as a hotel company. What's great about that for Marriott is if someday they wanted to do loyalty for, other types of industries, they could easily, conceptually, right?
Yeah.
The value that they bring is to hotel owners. The hotel industry isn't going to fall. The hotel industry is going to evolve. It's going to change. It's going to be Constantinople circa 1000 AD. It's not going to be, Rome is lying in tatters because the Goths took over, right? It's just a difference in terms of what's happening in the industry, and it's shaping up in a different way. One of the reasons I like working with independents who tend to be my clients, but not exclusively, is because they're taking that full ownership and they have found that they can get distribution and they can get marketing and they can get other services as a service and buy it as a commodity in some cases and focus on being really great at running really great hotels. And that's going to exist for as long as we continue to take care of our guests and continue to provide service and the like, and there will always be a place for that. But if you're a small business owner or you're a new business or you're a REIT or you're something else, you're going to need some way to bring guests to that asset because you're not in the business of running a hotel. You're in the business of owning real estate. That's okay. It's just a different thing. And that means it's going to have its own challenges with it. And that's not going to change until and unless Wall Street incentivizes them to change those businesses.
Yeah. Well, but again, you're going back to the idea that you're going to beat the cow because you don't like the milk. If you keep dumping it on the owners of the buildings, eventually you're going to lose the ability to actually have them as an owner in your system too.
Yeah,
well,
but the owner's
or
go
those
turn the
owners are going
building
to turn it into
something
condos.
Right.
Right. Which, we've seen that happen before.
Right. Because they're getting their value out of the asset that they intend. That's the business that they're in, Lauren. They're not in
I just think you don't like my whole con
business.
analogy. I think that got you mad.
No, I think it did get me mad because I think you're not seeing the bigger picture in the sense of what you're talking about is let's overthrow capitalism, right? Realistically, the incentives that exist for the different pieces of the value chain today probably aren't going away anytime real soon, right? As Robert wisely said, when I started working in the hotel industry in 2001, when I first started working in the hotel industry, Marriott owned probably 85 or 90% of its properties, roughly, right? I might be a little off on the metrics, but
maybe
they
a little
owned
high at that time, but
the vast majority of them, 75%, 70%, something like that, but the overwhelming majority. And over the course of the years, they have, divested themselves of those assets because it's not how they make money and it's not how they show value to the street. I worked for, at the time, the world's largest hotel franchisor. They may still be, actually. At the time I worked for Wyndham, we had 8,000 franchisees, which we didn't have the most hotels. We didn't have the most rooms. We had the most owners, and we had the most hotels in any one system. And we were 100% franchised, right? It's a different business. It's not better or worse. It creates benefits for one set of stakeholders, and it creates problems for another set of stakeholders, and it creates opportunities for a whole nother set of stakeholders to come in and reinvent what the industry looks like.
The goal of a franchise organization is about twofold. One is how do you maximize your margins, and two is how do you retain? Probably
how do you add rooms every quarter?
How do you attract? How do you attract new supply? How do you maintain that supply so it doesn't leave? And how do you maximize the margins off of that? Right. Which probably means raising your fees, which is in complete opposition with the owners who are like, hey, how do we get those fees as low as possible? Right. And yeah,
I'm still believing on the idea that nobody would have expected Rome to fall, whether you think the empire fell later or not. But that aspect of changing the culture is something. Is what you're talking about is just changing within the existing culture. I'm talking about us having to change.
I'm not. I mean, hear me out. Hear me out on this, right? Hear me out. Think about well, I'm not saying all of these companies will exist, right? Look at all of the acquisitions we've seen over the last couple of years. If you tell me, so right now there's basically 6 big companies, right? There's Marriott, Hilton, Wyndham, IHG, Choice. Who am I forgetting? Robert.
Radisson,
the biggest
Carlson,
right?
Carlson, yeah.
If you tell me in 5 years all 6 of those remain as independent entities and there's not consolidation, I will not buy that. I can't tell you which of the 6, but I refuse to believe all 6 of those will remain as independent companies, 5 years from now, 10 years from now anyway.
Yeah,
right?
you get to scale, you have to keep growing.
You have to keep growing.
If Marriott's really big, well, and there was an article I left out of the newsletter, which I probably should have put in. It was Zacks did an analysis of Marriott, and they said, Marriott, good on growth goals, RevPAR sucks, basically, right? But RevPAR, yes, that has an impact on their fee stream, but not nearly the impact of the owner who's sitting there going, "Holy crap!" Where'd all the money go to pay the staff and the mortgage I'm trying to renegotiate with the bank, right? So yeah, it's a whole all those
and if you look at
factors and those factors and that conflict is going to create, I firmly believe, kind of a shift change and innovation. I mean, I think what's going to happen, there's going to be a snap, right? Because you even see some really good, I mean, kind of my favorite little niche groups, Adele Library, right? Great job, right? Now they didn't, yes, you grew into Toronto and Budapest and things like that, but you didn't go, let's go have 4,000, here are the markets where these things would work, and let's go do them next year, right? But graduate hotels, Citizen M doesn't have, they got one type of bed. Sort of thing, right? So they don't have connecting rooms. They aren't targeting families. They know what they are, and that's what and they do a great job, right? And they have a great tech stack because they were really
look at the
smart
emergence of soft brands, right? Where did the soft brands come from these folks? It was about retaining owners who said, I need to provide something different because I need to monetize this asset more effectively. And I can go sign up with Sabre and get distribution, or I can go sign up with, Milestone and get a website and get a, direct booking engine, or Fuel and get a direct booking engine. Well, and Marriott said, and Hyatt said, and Wyndham said, and Choice said, and, on and on and on, Hilton, I need to retain this owner. Thus, I need to create a different kind of product because otherwise I'm going to have a problem.
You've just solidified my opinion on the opposite side of that then, because I believe that's going to cave in on the fact that you just pointed out Citizen M knew what it was and could be good at what it did. And then we really flipped the conversation saying by diversifying and trying to be all things in different components, they're going to fail. I think in strange ways, I didn't know you said fail, but I'm saying that hollowness that's being created by trying to satisfy any angle of opportunity and the oversaturation that they create and the multiplicities of brands within a market is going to be a hollow sphere for them.
For
because their value
individual
proposition
companies,
yes.
Yeah.
For individual companies, yes, for sure. For the model, no.
Look at Accor. Accor has twice as many brands as Marriott.
Accor was the one I was trying to think of, by the way. Thank you, Robert.
Oh yeah, Accor. Yeah, Accor. Twice as many brands as Marriott. But Joe and something, they've got some really cool niche. Now, some of the bigger ones, the Novotels, which are a big chunk of their inventory. Yeah, they got to figure that stuff out. They're running through the same challenges that Marriott has with Sheraton's, right? They're what do we do with this behemoth? We got the Westons. We got a lot of rooms. These are hard to, these are really hard to tweak, right? So yeah, that's going to be a very interesting challenge. But yeah, the companies can do things, but they've got to grow. They've got to have their margins go, or their investors go, look at look at Starwood, right? The demise of Starwood, which was a great company. They were doing terrific things. They wound up falling short of their growth objectives one year where the other guys beat it. And within 90 days, the CEO's out. Within 180 days, it's up for sale. And 270 days,
So
it's
how can
closed
you
with
be
Marriott.
so positive about what you look at Marriott, and yet with the example of Starwood, and yet we still joke about how the inefficiencies of brands response to what we're doing? This seismic shift of change in our culture this past year has really had let a profound. But you're very good, Tim, about pointing out future impacts we overestimate and everything else about future impacts and so forth, and not to overestimate it, but we have blatant examples of poor strategies on the same models that exist with the companies that are now successful. And yet you're touting all into the belief that through their diversification and constant growth, which is shown to already fail, okay, for those who did the same thing, is okay.
No.
fail.
You're misunderstanding and you're twisting what I'm saying, Lauren. You're in all seriousness.
Lauren, you
we're
ignorant
saying
slut.
Dan Aykroyd, Jane Curtin,
Thank
baby.
you, Robert. Somebody had to say it. Somebody had to say it.
Jane,
No.
ignorant.
What Starwood failed to do, look, strategy is great. The best strategy in the world is lovely. If you don't execute it well, you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
The strategy worked. Notice all the companies that didn't go under. Starwood, here's the crazy thing. This is why the incentives are so messed up. I wrote a piece about this when it occurred. Starwood's error was they stumbled. They didn't shrink. They were growing. They didn't grow as fast as they had set up the expectation with Wall Street that they were going to grow. And the minute they tripped, the minute they fell short of what those growth targets were, literally, it was a cascading effect. Robert's exactly right. 90 days later, they didn't exist as an independent entity. But the strategy goes on. The strategy goes on by all these other folks. It was an execution problem, not a strategy problem.
And
Right?
what was
And-
Starwood's valuation? But look at their valuation. At least the stuff that I was involved in and the groups that I was looking at, we were putting it at 50 to 60% of the value of Starwood was SPG, right? And
Right.
and the rest was the assets that they owned, right? That was everything. And that's why it couldn't get broken up, right? That one of the strategies was, well, great, we sell Weston to this and this, but that destroys the value of SPG, and the valuation of the company under that, it was like a third of what they got, or it was just really bad, right? So they did a great, what do you want to do? All these programs, and still, I think SPG coming in, yes, there was a little bit of challenges with Marriott. All the guys running Marriott Rewards and most of the reward programs around the industry are former SPG folks, right?
Right.
Almost to
Right.
a person, I think.
I don't want to be ignorant of the fact we've yet to say hi to Dean.
I joined this conversation.
He's starting to stay out of the fight.
I'm just
Come
gonna
on,
hang
Dean,
out.
come on in, buddy. Put your gloves on. Come on.
Yeah, you're good.
I still believe that the idea that not me but them, and I believe that there is always the belief that as much as something can never fail is destined to.
No. And I have never said that the strategy could never fail. You've never heard that word.
I know you didn't say that.
And B, so please don't put words in it that I didn't say.
I didn't say you did.
And B, right?
It's like
And
a
B,
press conference.
there's all kinds of other disruption that we've seen come in. When this all happened, what was Airbnb when this all occurred, right? It was nothing. It was really, really small when that actually happened. Look at them now. They have one of the biggest mind share, if not market share, in that space. Look at Vrbo, right? Vrbo existed at the time. Nobody cared, right? So there's always room for innovation. There's always room for disruption. And I completely agree that all of the franchised hotel companies, in theory, could go out of business tomorrow, in theory. Here's why I don't think it will happen, right? And there's a very simple reason here. The simple reason is that hotels will always exist, right?
Bye, Steph.
Bye,
Sorry.
Right?
We'll drag you on the next one if you need to add more stuff.
There's a hotel there's an inn. Somebody remind me how long it's been around. There's an inn in
Bethlehem?
Japan
Yeah, it's been around.
that has been in the same family for 1,000 years, more than that.
Oh,
right?
Japan? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like
something like that,
1,200,
1,200 years, right?
Yeah.
As I
Although
recall,
it's
there's
gone down, the 23rd generation, really, it took a step down. Those early guys, though, yeah.
Weren't
Right.
you like a bellman at that, Robert, when it first opened? Just saying. Okay.
right.
I was
But
a guest.
as
I was a guest there. It was before I joined the industry.
As I recall, there was a story in a book. Some people call it a really good book. There was a story about this young couple who needed a place to stay when they went home for the census, some 2,000 years ago or
Overbooked,
something
God
like
dang
that.
it.
And it was overbooked, and they had to sleep in a stable.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure hotels are going to be around for a very, very, very long
No
time.
trip,
People
no
will-
TripAdvisor then. Yeah.
No
you
TripAdvisor
are
then,
getting
exactly.
0
Exactly.
stars.
Well, no, there was 1 star.
Oh,
hey.
well done.
So the point here being, hotels, lodging, accommodations are going to be around for a very, very long time.
Yes.
They're going to be around.
I do not dispute that at all.
Okay. All right. The question is, are you a service provider to the hotel or are you a service provider to the guest, right? Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton, Wyndham, etc. They're service providers to the hotels. Could someone come along and provide a better service to those hotels and have the hotels say, you know what, I don't need to hang this sign out in front to fill my rooms?
Right.
Definitely. Absolutely. 100%. People do it. Robert brought up quite wisely the library collection. They did a phenomenal job. Adele, you never chose to hang a sign outside any of your properties that said anything other than the library collection. And you got all the services you needed for marketing and distribution and rev management and housekeeping and financing and all of the things that you required without ever hanging that sign outside, right? Every year. Adele, you're on mute.
You're mute. You're muted.
Adele, you're muted.
You're mute.
Sorry, my
making a
dog
really
was
good
barking.
point.
She was really there.
My dog was barking, so I muted it. I just want to put a little plug in for HSMAI. Throughout my career, I was usually the person on top, and yet I had to remain growing and learning and exploring new things. And I don't know how I could have done that without the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International. And I just want to encourage everybody, it is worth a few dollars every year to pay your membership for it and to participate, because the connections, the conversations, actually, I wouldn't know any of you if it wasn't for HSMAI, right? So it really served as my leadership, having smart guys like you to talk to all the time.
Well, and
Adele, can I put you on the spot,
though?
though? Adele, can I put you on the spot? You don't have to answer this if it's anything proprietary or you're not allowed to. But where did you get your CRS when you worked for the library collection?
I'm trying to remember when I started. I think it was I don't remember. Was it? It was something with 3 letters. CLS.
For the PMS?
Yeah.
For the property management system. Yeah.
Oh,
You know what?
Yeah, he was
Well,
talking
that
about
was your
CRS.
property management.
That was my
Your
property management.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It could have been Lexington, but
Yep.
I was always able to have a lot of connections and find and learn about how to judge what would be a good booking engine, what would be a good distribution channel. I made some mistakes along the way. I'll never sign a 3-year contract again for technology in my life. That'll never happen. But I was lucky to have, some really great providers for the website, for the booking engine and everything. So, but yeah.
And they were owned hotels, owned, operated, managed hotels by your company, right?
And if we made
the
a
company-
decision that was what we were going to do, well, that was what we were going to do.
Yep.
And you grew year after year after year, barring macro situations and things like that. You always did very well, right?
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you can look at the years at how our GRI, the Global Review Index went for 93%, 94%, next year 95%, next year 96%. You could see we were growing in our skill level too.
But
Mhm.
how is the bottom line for the owner, right?
Oh, I assume great until
Yeah.
COVID.
Well, yeah, but no, again, because they controlled everything, they figured out how to align all of these incentives with and they figured out, you know what, happy guests, evangelizing these relatively unknown products, right? And it is crazy because my daughter, at the time, I guess it was her fiance, went to New York with her fiance's family, right, for holidays, things like that. Where'd they wind up? The Monkey Bar, right, at ALSA. And I had told her, you really need to go. And I had taken them in there when they were kids, right? Like, this is my favorite hotel. This is just like a really cool, it's a cool place. This is New York, right here. This is really the epitome of it, sort of thing. And my daughter's like, holy crap, I've been here. They thought this was their real secret insider type, only they knew about it. And yeah, she's like, oh yeah, I was here when I was like 10.
Yeah. Okay, that goes a little bit to something, Tim, that I would like to point out. And I feel that, to your point, and I know that you're not saying that brands can't fail. And I'm saying that the way they're approaching business now as a service provider to our industry, I know hotels aren't going to fail, or accommodations are going to fail, or the the innkeepers.
I mean,
fail.
individual ones will,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, no, that all
right?
changes up and go. I'm talking about
Right.
what brands represent, and I say that from much of the same way that their value proposition, I think, is in question, in transition. Okay, ineptly they have handled this crisis. I would say ineptly, and I would defy a good example of them doing a good job. Okay, because I can shoot down anything that I know of aware that they've been doing or tried to do or haven't done at all. They've ineptly handled this.
I have to
Certainly
ask you a
not
question, Lauren.
consistently, not consistently across the whole portfolio. They've done
There's,
some good things.
this is a very
lots
broad,
of-
broad brush.
And I have to ask you a very specific question. From whose perspective?
From
Yeah.
I'll give you two examples. Not just the owner and of the operator of the hotel, but the guest. The guest became malinformed. They became insecure of their brand value, and they became inconsistent with their desire for it. So, in all honesty, it impacted the very people that used the product that they were touting, they were representing. In addition to the owner's value proposition relationship with them, I would say that those are the two strongest aspects of it. I would say the other fall down of brand is their true value of membership, loyalty, and connectivity to those people is in flux. Here's the positive side. With the change of third-party cookies to first-party cookies, that value proposition goes up because that direct correlation with brand connectivity is a value.
That's not true. That's factually inaccurate. We
hold
need to
on.
address that in a
No.
second,
Just
but
stop
go
for a
ahead.
second. Stop for a second. Let me finish what I'm going to say about why.
Yeah, I will. I just want to make sure I make
Brands'
that point.
ability to communicate directly with those that are connected to them through their membership rewards program has a value to it because of the impact of the cookie changing going on. Okay?
Yes.
That ability. Okay? That's all I'm pointing out to. The negative, that's an old Rolodex. Nobody has brand loyalty to the level that is touted for the ownership of brand. Okay? That aspect of, I can bring these people to you is a quasi value. There are true loyalists, absolutely. I know that there's spectrums to this, but the real total value that they tout as to what they can do with it is diminished and diluted, and especially with this past year's impact on brand value. Okay, so that's where I say there's cracks in the wall of that.
Well, there are structural things that benefit the brands. Case in point, the GDSs, right? You can only have one code, right? And it's going in. The brands do not want that to change, right? Because you get credit for it doesn't matter how they book. It's got to, if it's coming through that pipe, it's, that they get credit.
And the negotiated fees on OTA bookings.
No, exactly. That's a huge value proposition. Being able to get financing, preferably being able to just finance your hotel. A lot of banks just go, "Where's your flag? We don't do these things without flags."
But that's been diluted too.
Yes and no.
In some ways,
because
no.
the soft brands
That's a very
lower
broad
that
statement,
bar.
I know, but
The soft brands lower the cost, right? I mean, that's basically the structure. Here's the fee structure for all the full things. You got to do all the brand. Yeah, we'll let you in to do this, and it's going to cost you less, right? So yeah, there are a variety of. But if you look at Marriott's share price today, right? Well, not today. It's down a bit. But let's say on March. Whoops, let me just get my pointer here. Okay, March 19th. So, yeah, week ago. It was $152 and change a share. Guess what the share price was on December 27th, 2019? $152 and change. They're back, and actually they hit that peak around 147 in January of 2018, right? So you look at Marriott, there's a big Grand Canyon between that December of last year and now, but they've come back up, and I don't think they've done any interesting maybe they had some buybacks, but I don't think that's the whole I don't think that's
I
the
think
whole
it's
story.
remain calm as an investor. It's funny. It's like you're saying, and I'm sorry to diverge on this. It's like interviewing a realtor about the housing market down here crashing. Do you really think a realtor is going to go on TV and say that the market that he makes money off of is in the fear of crashing? No, you're asking the
You
person
really
that
think investors
relied
are
upon
going to
its
put their money
success.
into this stock if they think it's going to go out of business tomorrow?
No.
Right? It's just
No,
like
the
really, they're going to talk
bettors-
about bad when they want to make sure the price stays to what they bought it for. Come on.
The Wall
Right,
Street
but you-
Casino, the Wall Street Casino is basically betting as heavily on Marriott right now as they were, whatever, 15 months ago, right?
Yeah, we've seen what's happened with GameStop, for God's sakes. We know how the system
No,
works.
Marriott is
No.
that's not.
Apples,
no.
apples, and bowling balls, Lauren.
Analogies are still there.
Raw,
Analogies are
raw
still there.
eggs and bowling
Nonsense.
balls, Tim.
Nonsense, because what happened to
If I want it to be
was
valuable, I buy it at a
investors
value.
bailed.
And people believe me and they buy it too. Yeah.
Lauren, just because you say it louder doesn't make it true. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. What happened with Starwood was precisely the opposite of that. Starwood had growth the year that they stumbled, right? They had growth.
Just not
Their
enough.
share price fell.
Right.
Just not enough. They didn't grow enough for Wall Street. By the way, I posted a link in the show notes to a thing I wrote 6 years ago about our hotel brands doomed. And the answer I came up with was
Some of them.
yes and no. Some of them, yes,
I
right?
agree with you.
But
The crappy ones, hopefully.
the crappy ones, hopefully.
Here's the other thing where I think that they have a weakness at the brand level too. When we talked about all these franchisers, what they do really well is franchising, right? That is their expertise. So if you're one of the big six that we just talked about, a Hilton, a Wyndham, a Marriott, whatever the case may be, when you get down to the tech stack and digital marketing, we're all digital marketers, right? When you get down to that part of it, they're doing that across 6,000 hotels, 4,000 hotels, whatever it may be, at a brand level. So they're doing a very high level job of it. And that's why they roll out these things we call top off programs where an individual property can now top that off. However, within that franchise, we talked about owned managed earlier versus franchise, there is a little section in every one of them that these are my owned and managed properties. But it's a small percentage of the bigger whole. But that little small percentage now suddenly we've got to pay attention to. So there's a department whose job now it is to handle that, right? And they get all the love, they get all the attention. But here's the problem. That's not what they do. They're really good franchisers. They're really good at doing things at scale. And now we're trying to pretend to be experts at, well, here, I'm going to take these 200 out of my 5,000 hotels and do something special with them. But that's not our core expertise.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Lauren, when you come back around to this, it's if you're a hotel owner, right? If you are a hotel owner, you have to make a decision for yourself. What is the best way for you to get the services you need? That includes distribution, that includes marketing, that includes a website, that includes a booking engine, includes a PMS and a CRS and all of these other pieces, right? You have to decide what's the best way to do that. For some people, the correct answer is, I need to fly a flag from someone else. For some people, the correct answer is
it's
just
pay
well, and especially, I mean, I will say this. I worked for Wyndham for a long time. I like Wyndham. I think they're a good company, right? Many of their hotels, they are one of the largest economy franchisors in the world. And a lot of those economy franchisees, this is their first foray into owning a hotel. What they're providing as much as anything is a system and training and learning how to operate a hotel. Some of those folks go on to own 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 or 30 properties. Some of them go on to start with a Travelodge, and then they move up market and become a Ramada, and then they move up market and become a Days Inn, and then they move up market and become a Wingate, and then they move up market and become a Wyndham. That's the best case scenario. When Wyndham does that well, that's fantastic, right? Some of them get to a certain point and they say, you know what? I'm really good at this and I already have 12 properties. I don't want to be Super 8, with no disrespect to Super 8. Super 8 is a great brand, right? Super 8
and no longer a Wyndham,
and
no longer a Wyndham part of,
and no longer a Wyndham. I might
Right.
want to be, Tim's Hotel Company, an independent set of 12 hotels.
Peter's
But
Place.
I beg your pardon? I didn't hear-
Peter's Place.
Peter's Place. There you go. But I still need to figure out, where am I getting my central reservations from? Where am I getting my booking engine from? Where am I getting, distribution from? And I might say, you know what, Wyndham, I want these to be part of I think Trademark, is it? Is that their software name?
Yeah.
I might want to be part of Trademark. Or maybe I want to be part of, if I can move up market enough, admittedly, this would be a leap from Super 8, but, I want to be part of Preferred, or I want to be part of the leading hotels of the world. Or maybe I just want to buy it from Sabre. Maybe I just want to buy it from Fuel Travel for my booking engine and my website and things like that. And those are all valid options.
Well, it's
The
very
companies,
but there's more risk, right?
but there's more
And
risk.
with that
and
risk,
I might
you
not be able to get financing, which is a big problem.
Right. And you might have to add staff with expertise on your
Correct.
team to
Correct.
replace the distribution or the digital marketing or the
You're
whatever.
misconstrued that
Even
I'm
though,
saying that brand as an entity will be the demise, not at all. I'm saying that our industry's brands need to mature and transition from what they've been existing in life support now
oh yeah,
to what they need to do
Of course.
in the future tense from a very high level position.
I think they do. I agree with you, but I think they are also. You said something a moment ago, and I said that's not true, right? I'm very curious what the Bonvoy members think about Bonvoy right now. And first and foremost, Lauren, you and I are completely aligned on brand loyalty. The way we talk about it in the industry is incorrect, right?
it's rewards programs.
It's
not
rewards
loyalty.
programs. It is not loyalty. I have never seen anybody get a Bonvoy tattoo. I have
Wait
seen
a
people.
second. Hang on.
I have seen people with
Lauren,
Apple tattoos.
do not show Tim your stamp. Do not, Lauren. Don't.
But I've seen people with Apple tattoos. I've seen people with Harley Davidson tattoos. I've seen people with Fender guitar tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's brand loyalty in a way that we don't have in the industry.
Mhm.
But I guarantee the library collection had super loyal guests.
Wait.
Super loyal guests.
How many were there? Library collection or giraffe? Maybe hotel giraffe tattoos, perhaps. I don't know.
Right.
You know what though? Like people would say all the time, oh my goodness, there's a hotel in New York called the Library Hotel with 6,000 books organized throughout the hotel based on the Dewey Decimal System. This is my bucket list of life. I have to go there. And they just, on hearing the concept of it and who we were, and hopefully seeing the reviews, they were so excited about it, having not even been there.
Yeah,
Amazing.
But the genius was not saying, great, we're going to have library hotels in every major city around the world.
Correct.
And oh crap, we got to go find 600,000 or 600 million books to go. That's not it, right? Because you did different things. A-list,
From a pragmatic point of view,
Casablanca, and then you did Aria, it's music themed. So similar concept. But yeah, you go, you know what? Let's do the music. That's a better fit. And that's the genius of it, of not just how do we cookie cutter it, where in fairness to the brands, that's what they do. That's what the franchising model.
And
it's like
in fairness to the
cookie cutter.
brands, that's the point of the brand,
Exactly.
realistically, right?
Yeah, but here's my point with the logistics right now of the brand in transition right now, and the whole core theme of this. We're saying, are we in preparation for the changing time scales? Brand right now, and Dean pointed this out, is on a FOMO marketing program. Fear of missing out from a hotel. Oh my gosh, if I don't buy the buy up that's being offered to my market for travel ads or MetaSearch or anything else like this, then my competitor is going to do this. I have to. That is their strategy of representation in their market. It's not whether or not that channel is actually a value proposition. Any business at this point is a value proposition. But what is brand geared for in the transition moving forward? I'm saying it has to grow up. I'm seeing old buggies being whipped out of their carts going, let's start our marketing campaign that's the same one we had 2 years ago.
I hear what you're saying. Here's where I would disagree, and I want to be very clear.
Not done that today.
And I'm going to throw somebody's quote back at them about, the problem is you're thinking in two dimensions. See, the situation, right? And I have no inside knowledge on this. I don't work with Marriott. I don't know Marriott. I am judging this from an external point of view based on what I think is going on. I believe Marriott has looked at where their bread is buttered and where their money is made and things along those lines, and they recognize it is made from Bonvoy members. Their focus is they franchise hotels. Sure, they hang flags outside hotels, but the value proposition that they bring to those hotels is by bringing in guests who are part of Bonvoy. And so all of their efforts are not around the tech stack, are not around the benefit to the franchisee in the sense that we have traditionally thought about it. It is, how do I collect a lot of people who want to stay places where they will receive the rewards of being Bonvoy, such that a lot of hotels will say, I have to be part of Marriott because otherwise I will not get access to those guests. I think they are changing the game of what it means to be a hotel franchisor, because they're saying the focus first and foremost is on the loyalty program, and they're investing a ton of money in the tech stack for that. And they're investing a ton of money in the marketing for that. And they're investing a ton of money in how they create content and experiences and ideas based around how do they grow the size and the value to those members such that they have a value proposition to the hotels, which then allows them to go to the third parties, the OTAs and the folks, and say, I've got 8,000 hotels who are my folks. You're going to give me a better deal. And if I have to pay you some marketing funds to lower that rate to add to the value proposition, but they're not worried about the operation of the hotel in the large. The management company side might be.
And
but
now
Marriott,
we're back to TripAdvisor Plus. Because you've just taken the whole concept of value of content and said there's a value proposition in the relationship, only with the flavor being that I can have more hotels participate so that I can give the value proposition to them in particular. And TripAdvisor Plus going, hey, I like that game. Let me go do something like that.
Well, I think that's exactly what TripAdvisor Plus did.
And you now deal with agnostic value proposition to the guest. What's my best for what the choice I'm making? Whether I call myself a Bonvoy or a Hilton's Reward or a freaking travel TripAdvisor Plus, I don't care.
Well, but that's the point between strategy and execution, right? That's what Marriott has to do from an execution perspective to ensure that they continue to provide value to the guest. Because if they don't provide value to the guest, they won't care whether or not they get their Bonvoy points, and the whole house of cards collapses.
And meanwhile, the cow's going to die because nobody's feeding it and everybody's wanting the milk.
Oh, that's I disagree. Look at Marriott's financial success. I would argue the data suggests the exact opposite of what you're saying. I would argue it's working really well. From the point of view of
numbers,
the strategy,
you're absolutely right. In bulk numbers, you're absolutely right. I mean, on the ground level,
that's the only part we
count
count is how big the number is. I beg your pardon? I said
on bulk numbers, I agree with you. On ground level stuff, I completely disagree with you. There's not a market I'm competing with a brand or have a brand as a client that's doing what they should be doing for their best benefit. To your point, that it's not built for them in particular, but they're not going to keep that relationship if the relationship's not valuable, which is also your point.
Right, we're saying the same thing, Lauren. I mean, I mostly work with independents, and we kick Marriott's ass in those markets where we work every single day by offering a differentiated product. It's another way to do it. In scale numbers, if we're counting bulk numbers, Marriott's doing okay for themselves. I don't think they're like losing out on sleep at night.
It will be in time. That's what I'm saying about this transition process of growing up is going to happen.
I agree with you that some of that big six will for sure. If you read the thing I just posted a minute ago, there's no way all six of those are around in 10 years' time. I'm
always totally impressed that you have a blog about this, and usually years back that you were seeing this before it actually happened, just so you know.
And I don't mean it that way. I just mean it more from the standpoint of nobody can predict. It's why I don't play the stock market, right? Because I can't tell you which of the big six are going to be around 10 years from now. But there's no way all six of them are, because one of them will fail to execute 1 quarter or 2 quarters. And then that's the one that's going to get folded into somebody else. It's going to become a buying opportunity for the other remaining members of the big six.
Right.
Right?
I'm going back to the history thing again. Competition breeds excellence. Monopolies breed resistance. Okay, and that's what's going to eventually happen. Because okay, no,
I'll let you finish.
history repetitively points out that as long as there's competition, creates value. When it turns into a monopoly, there's a subversion of resistance to the monopoly. That's how things fall. That's how this emergence and regrowth constantly happens. Nobody as Gandhi said, you know, it may seem insurmountable, but time will pass. The body of your enemy will float by if you wait long enough. One person controlling it, as evil and as powerful as they may be, will eventually fall. Just give it enough time.
No, I agree with that.
That will happen.
Yeah, but it's not.
But you can't call 6 brands a monopoly.
No, and that right now we're not in a monopolistic stage. But as these things, as you pointed out, as they begin to merge and growth is a thing, that inevitably is an endpoint. There is no infinitum to this. It is an endpoint.
I'm
being very philosophical when I say that, but the idea of it is there will be a point where even if there's just one that remains, it will topple because of something that subverts it.
If we reach a point where just one remains, I would agree with that. I don't think that'll ever happen, or ever. I have a hard time seeing when that will happen.
We're seeing it
trying to find another thing.
Google and Facebook. We're seeing those things begin to happen with them as well.
So what happens?
Different though. Yeah,
that's a very different thing. Yeah, you're kind of moving the goalposts on this one.
I'm on the philosophical level right now. Like, hey, you know, things will happen. The Earth does still spin, kind of thing.
But here's the thing. I mean, what tends to happen, right? Let's. You want to shift gears and talk about Google? We can talk about Google. Here's Google's problem. Google's one of the most dominant companies I've ever seen in history, right? They're incredibly dominant, right? Their strength is incredibly brittle. If you wanted to stop searching on Google tomorrow, what would prevent you from searching on Google tomorrow?
Yeah. DuckDuckGo's pretty good.
DuckDuckGo's pretty good. You can start searching DuckDuckGo tomorrow. Go to duckduckgo.com or duck.com. And how much of Google's revenues is made from people clicking on ads in search?
94% or something like that.
It's 87%.
Yeah, it's dropped a little bit. Yeah.
They are a one-product company. They make almost 100% of their revenues from people clicking on ads, right? Almost 100% of their revenue. And yet the customer could switch tomorrow. If we all woke up tomorrow and said we want to start searching on DuckDuckGo, or we wanted to start searching on Bing, or we wanted to start searching on, I don't know, TripAdvisor, or Expedia, or folks like that, Amazon, right? Or use our Alexa, right? Google is in big, big, big trouble, huge trouble. And the way that monopolists, and I'm not saying Google is a monopoly, I don't have a specific point of view on that, but the way that companies that are dominant often lose is they lose at the margins first, right? So people want to do a job search, they go to Indeed. People want to do an e-commerce search, they go to Amazon. People want to do a travel search, they go to Expedia. People want to do what's another example? You know,
Etsy. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Etsy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason Google keeps expanding into all these areas is because they're trying to prevent the margin from going away. Because the minute the margin goes away, they start to lose market share. People start saying, you know what? If I want to search for this other thing, I don't need to go to Google. I need to go somewhere else. Their strength is incredibly brittle. It could break quickly if it were to break, right? If you look at a Marriott, you look at a Wyndham, you look at folks like that, they have lock-in. It is very hard for people to get out of these agreements and move tomorrow. Could it happen for any one brand? For sure. But it's a process that takes a little bit of time, and it's a different way to fail. They fail because they don't hit a certain set of metrics, and the market, dries up funding for them, and then they have to go, as they like to say, explore strategic options, which means please somebody come buy me.
Yeah, and again, when you're locked in with these long-term, either management agreements or franchise agreements, and the owner getting locked into a mortgage that's dependent on those relationships and things like that. Yeah, that helps them a lot. I mean, it's basically they've built some walls, right? And so that's what you want to do. You want to have some barriers to entry so people just can't decimate. As Adele said, she's not going to sign 3-year deals for technology sort of thing. Well, a lot of those deals in the past were like, hey, here's a 10-year deal, here's a 5-year deal, here's whatever. And so, yeah, everything's getting a lot shorter, a lot more. So the thing, if you follow like Scott Galloway, who's now actually kind of hitting the guy's like everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the Pivot podcast is great with Kara Swisher and
Kara Swisher. Yeah.
I always do Kara because growing up, there was a Kara with a K, and then I worked with a Kara with a C, and it's backwards for Swisher. but anyway, yeah, with that, his big thing now is dispersion, right? That everything's kind of breaking up, and it will. And there are two things. Adele, plugged HSMAI. I want to plug HTNG because I'm one of their executive advisors, and they just merged with H&LA. Right, which is a very, very interesting pairing, which has been in the works for about over 6 months, right? But with that, and the conversations that you're having, HSMA, same things happening in the tech world, the hospitality tech world within HTNG. But there are two things that are very, very interesting that I have to be involved with. One is this unique hotel identifier, because if you can suddenly have every property have its own ID and be able to self-determine my availability rates and inventory over there, here, let me point to all the various pieces of my tech stack off of my service bus and have all those things work together and know when you upgrade this, you're certified on that, and you can, do all your little upgrades and migrations very simply. Distribution gets a lot simpler without complex cross-reference tables, which burden the entire distribution and publishing end of the industry. That's going to change a lot of stuff, and I think it's going to happen. I mean, I was speaking with a major group about it, who's not hoteliers, they're on the distribution side. Their focus was, how do you get to the room level? Can you get to the room level fast?
Yeah.
Because the property level ain't working for these guys, right? They've got to start comparing product to product, and the hotel industry wants to do attribute-based selling, which is going to take it down a whole nother rabbit hole, which will be very difficult if you don't have this. That's on one thing, that's on the supply. On the other side, just within the last couple of weeks, there's a new special interest group with the Distributed Identity Foundation. And DIF is very, very interesting. This is you. How do you hold your own credentials that identify you as Tim Peter or whatever, and the various affiliations there? And it goes across everything. Financial services, health, travel should be part of it. Well, now there's a travel and hospitality special interest group that's working with some of the big boys, right, who are on this. And it's not like, hey, let's do it the travel way and just take over the world. It's like, no, how do we get into this ecosystem and start leveraging all this amazing stuff that all these other guys are doing? So the dispersion is going to be all of these individuals kind of going, no, I'm not dependent on Google, or I'm not dependent on this or my Facebook thing. I got mine, and I'm going to start deciding what information I share with you when. How much do I love and trust you? I give everything to Apple because I got the Apple tattoo, and I'm giving Hilton, we picked on Marriott enough, Hilton nothing, sort of thing, right? Because I don't trust them. Or I'll just do it transactionally for this one thing, and you can't use it for anything else, and you got to get rid of it as soon as we check out. This is a one-night stand, folks. No baggage, right? So those sorts of things are going to cause a tremendous, and basically a service bus of how you connect all the services technologically between all that stuff. That's the end game. And that is not what the hotel industry is doing now. I think there's going to be kind of I think that's why,
but I do think that's why
big shift change in the next 7-10 years that's going to make it look very different from now, and empower a lot of hotel owners, which is going to cause those brands to have to raise their game or fall by the wayside, right?
And I essentially agree with that, Robert. I mean, I bet my business when I started it on independent hotels. I have since done work for management companies. I've since done work for some brands. I've since done some work for I'm blanking on this.
Cartels. Yeah, cartels.
No, just management companies who own and operate primarily flagged properties. Oh, and I've done some work for some brands, right?
What about when you were traveling around the world? That wasn't, I thought that was like guns and drugs.
Private jet.
Yeah. I thought
leaders.
Ixnay on the on the arms dealership no. First of all, I think what you just said is correct. I think it's a longer term proposition, and there's still going to be this situation of, there are how many hotels in the United States? Does anybody know? I used to know this number off the top of my head. I can't remember. It's like 50,000.
I think it's
got to be bigger than that. It's got to be like 100,000, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Something like that. Okay. 10% of that are folks. 20% of that are probably people who are absolutely capable or more than capable of going in independently and doing this all themselves and building the kind of company that they can. 20% of them.
54,200.
How many?
Sorry. 54,200.
That can't be right.
That's STR's number. That's only.
Hey, that's AHLA's. That's AHLA's.
Those are members of H&LA. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. That's got to be a lot more than that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Then, nonetheless, the point being, there's another 20% and I'm going to call it the bottom end. I don't mean it that way, but there's 20% who can never do that on their own, right? They're just, so the point being that, there will be this reckoning for everybody's going to be fighting over the, 60% in the middle over time, but it's going to be a change. I said, I bet my company on independent when I started. And yet in the 10 years, I've been in business 10 years this year, actually next week will be our 10th anniversary. And in the 10 years since I started this, the share of branded hotels in the United States has increased.
Yeah.
And if you told me 10 years ago that would have happened in 10 years time, I would have said there's no way. Right. So I'm willing, I have to say when I'm wrong, I would have expected, because of the fact that you can go and buy distribution services on the open market, because of the fact that you can buy, marketing and CRS and connectivity and things like that in the open market, I would have predicted that there would be more independent hotels today than there were 10 years ago. There isn't.
Okay.
Because the folks who own the buildings, the folks who own the things have started to figure out there's value in going with the brands. So I don't dispute, Lauren, that there are absolutely going to be a bunch of hotels who don't need the brands. And I think there's going to be some brands who are in for a world of hurt, right? Some chains who are in for a world of hurt. But does that model go away in 10 years' time? Not without the kinds of changes that Robert is talking about. And the only thing I would say is 10 years ago, I would have said we've already hit the changes that we needed to make that happen. And that hasn't proved true yet. Doesn't mean it won't prove true. It just means we haven't quite reached that point.
Well, Tim
I
Berners-Lee.
want to do a Rain Man thing and say 86,789. Yeah, 86,789.
That sounds.
Yeah.
I wonder if it varies based on the location, because I feel like, and that's by no means a real statistic, in New York City, we exploded with boutique hotels that were without a brand.
Yes.
And I wonder why that would be when I guess if you're coming to New York, you may be looking for a more unique experience than when you're, I don't know, in the middle.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. I think you get a more seasoned, you get a more sophisticated traveler, you get travelers who've been to more places. And now, now I'm looking for something that is more distinct, right, than just a box of rooms, with no disrespect to franchise properties. But I mean, you want something where I worked for the leading hotels for years and years and years. And one of the things we loved about leading was we tried to assign hotels who gave you the sense that you were in a place, as opposed to it looked like any other hotel room anywhere. If you were in Jakarta, or you were in Paris, or you were in New York, or you were in, the Serengeti, you should feel like you were in Jakarta or the Serengeti or Paris or New York, right? It shouldn't feel like I could be anywhere. With no disrespect.
The divergence of Four Seasons from Ritz-Carlton strategically in 1985, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I seriously was there at the time, right? Was Ritz-Carlton, and Four Seasons managed the Ritz-Carlton Chicago, right? Which was, for a while before this guy John Coleman's, split off Washington and New York and things like that. But pre Horst Schultz and things like that. Ritz-Carlton was very focused on, we're going to bring this Ritz-Carlton experience, blue water glasses, things like that. I can't remember the place in Virginia, right? It was like a suburban thing. And it was just kind of, no, do you want that exact kind of cookie cuttered experience out over and over? versus Four Seasons, where it was sense of place and unique. How do you make the hotel fit?
Right.
The Philadelphia hotel was really different than the New York hotel from the Dallas hotel, and things like that, right? Structurally, everything, how they engage with the city, the types of, even the types of restaurants and things like that, and availability. Now, Ritz-Carlton smartly, after, I don't know, maybe early 2000s, when they really started focusing on the Malcolm Baldrige Award, right? They really wanted to win that. They figured out, whoa, let's go a different direction, right? We can use that award and say we're excellent, but we need to have these hotels tied into the nature, because they were getting their asses kicked by Four Seasons. Ritz-Carlton had a better name, better name recognition. People would migrate to it because they knew what that was. They didn't know what the hell Four Seasons was, but once they figured out what they were, all of a sudden it was different. And Ritz has done a good job of fixing that, right? And Marriott, to their credit, didn't screw up Ritz, which was a big fear when they acquired. It was like, oh God, they're going to get rid of room service, they're going to do this. And no, they were smart about it.
And Adele, I suspect what you were seeing was the ratio in New York was probably heavily skewed towards independent compared with the rest of the industry. I also would expect, I don't know this, I was just trying to do a quick search and I couldn't come up with a number, but I would expect either property count or room count, it still probably was more branded openings than non-branded openings, but just the ratio would have been dramatically higher. I bet. I don't know that. That's just my guess, right? So.
This seemed like a lot of independent
Oh,
hotels.
for sure.
So many things that I had never heard of before and really had to figure out what it was. But,
I mean, you had some great openings. Sorry, go ahead.
Just thanks to the internet and TripAdvisor, you can open a no-name hotel and still have a fantastic billboard if you can tell your story well, have a beautiful website. I just don't know how the brand websites manage because I would feel so constrained to have to tell my story in such a limited space. And I feel a vanity site is so important. I can't even imagine sharing my website with you.
And that's one of the things of brands, because again, one of the key strategies, do not let them have, quote, vanity sites, which it's like, no, that's the hotel's website, right? It's nothing vanity. Well, it's about that, but they want to have that centralized. So again, they get credit. They don't want a whole bunch of other stuff where the owners go, hey, wait, look at the stuff we're doing. We're getting more bookings through our site without you, right? That they don't need that kind of those conversations going on. Those conversations do not benefit the brand growing and their objectives, right? Those are not aligned. Their incentives are not aligned with that conversation, right?
That's true. But as a guy who ran a brand.com, and I fear this might come off as defensive, and it's not meant to. It's complicated because it's not there's a lot of realities there that are challenging. You know,
you don't want them to screw it up. You don't want the hotel to screw up all that stuff and go, wow, that's really good, but those really nice immersive videos take 30 seconds to load.
I'm going to give you an easier one, right? I'm going to give you an easier one. You know, I worked for Wyndham. Now, Wyndham had, when I was there, 15 brands. And I've been gone from Wyndham for 14 years, right? So this is a while ago. So anything I'm saying now, I guarantee is no longer true, right? But we had 15 brands that ran from economy to upper mid, right? And in the economy space, one of the biggest challenges we had that is literally, so we had on our website, on every properties page on the website, we had a link to the properties website. And I can tell you this with confidence, on a roughly monthly basis, sometimes a couple times a month, sometimes it wouldn't happen for 6 weeks, but about every month, somebody would call me from some part of the company and say, why are we linking to porn from our website?
Because it drives traffic and conversion.
No, and the answer was because the franchisee, who was busy running a 70-room property on I-80 in the middle of the country, had forgotten to re-up their domain. They hadn't paid their domain bill, and a squatter had come in and taken over the domain. And now we are linking to a domain that is hosting porn, right? every
notice-
single month.
Yeah.
That's one example. Another example
Wait,
is
just notice Lauren has paused here because he's now calling his clients, going, "Hey, they've got a great idea."
No, he's trying to take down that site now.
That's right.
But there was the Can Spam Act, right?
Yep.
There was the Can Spam Act. If people opted in to receive emails on our site, let's rephrase that. Let's say it's somebody who stayed at one of our properties or the like, and there was an email list that the property had, and the guest opted out at daysin.com, and then they got an email from the Days Inn, Northgate in Orlando, right? Suddenly we were liable for violating the Can Spam Act. Right?
Yep.
So the point being that some of the things that the brands do that restrict properties are for the benefit of the entire franchise base, for sure. The other thing is, and hear me out on this last bit, and this is a place where I think people, this is a big difference in the mindset between a chain and an independent hotel. And that is, if I'm the benefit of a franchise for years and years and years, McDonald's was one of the most famous franchises ever, right? The reason that McDonald's started was it ensured you got consistent food every place you stopped, and you'd find clean bathrooms every place you stopped.
Yeah.
Literally, they were designed for people driving along the then new interstate system, right? That was the idea behind it. And that was the idea behind Holiday Inn, and that was the idea behind Days Inn, and that was the idea behind Super 8.
Yep.
Right, Hojo's. So the point is consistency. The point that you don't want branded properties to have their own vanity sites was because you were not providing a consistent brand experience across the board, which is the whole point of being a part of chains like that from the outset. The whole point is the guest has one experience. My personal favorites were, we'd have a multi-unit owner who would create a website that would have his Days Inn on it, his Howard Johnson on it, and the biggest sin, they'd have their, Comfort Inns on it, because Comfort Inns isn't a Wyndham brand.
Right.
So you have a huge brand equity problem from that perspective. Now, is that correct for 2021? I don't know. I don't have to do that for a living these days. But is it why we did it, when I worked there? For sure. Those were certainly part of it too. Everything Robert said was true, but also there's a lot more to that than just the one bit.
Can I take Lauren's side for just one thing, Dean? I'm going to take Lauren's side for one thing, just to help the poor guy, because I know he had to cry quietly for a little while. He's regaining.
I did. I had to cry quietly for a while.
Okay.
I had to go curl up in a fetal position.
Okay.
Tim doesn't love me anymore.
So
yeah, but I don't love you any less either.
That's right. It's a 0-0 out.
So Adele, library collection has how many hotels in New York? 5?
4.
4. Okay.
Yeah, we actually launched another hotel, but then parted company after a while. It
That's
went
okay.
from being number 15 with us to being like number 278 without us. But
That's okay. Okay.
Not to brag or anything.
So for library in New York, I mean, post pandemic or pre-pandemic, whatever, they're focused on these 4 properties. That's good. Marriott, if you put New York City, right, and put in a length of stay, showing the first page of their search results, showing 1 through 40 of 217 hotels.
Yeah.
That's a whole different challenge.
Correct. That's correct.
And that's going to be the problem with Lauren, I think, is saying is, how the hell do you feed 217 mouths that all have slightly different dietary requirements? Right?
And that's an entirely fair point.
Yeah.
And for those vanity websites, you run into another point too. Is how are you going to market your vanity website versus the corporate done one? You can end up shooting yourself in the foot, because if you're both bidding on branded search terms, which is a no,
right.
now you're bidding each other up on those.
That's exactly right.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll go back to my Roman analogy. One of the things, the success of Rome was the fact that after they conquered somebody, they let them exist as they were, as long as they were fetal to Rome, that they were now a part of the collective of what Rome represented. That because not every building built by Romans was the same building in every region that they occupied. They allowed the localities to dictate what it is they were best at. That is a failure point of some franchise right now. They're trying to model themselves to what they learn from different places. Like, I want this type of demographic or this type of business in this type of region. But they've not truly adopted the idea of saying, let Romans be Romans. In the sense that people can be what they are as long as they're collectively to the benefit of everyone aggregated together. And I don't think that has truly worked out, because to your point, Tim, I'm not that brilliant.
I actually agree with that completely.
That brands had. But I also believe, honestly, that there's a latitude that's allowed as long as the consistency remains. There's a middle point to this that they haven't really allowed themselves to grow into because of the infrastructure of our industry, which goes back to my original point about the growth of the industry.
No. I actually wouldn't disagree with that. I worked for the leading hotels of the world for a bunch of years, and we were 450 independent hotels together, right? There were things that we had to be consistent about. We had to be consistent about experience, the quality of the experience, the feel of the experience. We didn't have to be consistent at all about how you delivered that experience, right? So, but I mean, those are different philosophies of what the brand is supposed to be. I actually wouldn't disagree with you at all. I do know that if I went into a McDonald's and couldn't get a Big Mac, not that I go to McDonald's, but if I were to go to McDonald's and I couldn't get a Big Mac because, it wasn't the local vibe, I'd have a problem with that personally.
Well, that's exactly what happens, though. There's places in India you don't get a Big Mac.
I understand.
Okay?
No, I understand.
And if you go to Holland, you get a McCrocket. Okay, it has learned to identify its value of locality.
Yeah, but
that tells me that when I go to those places, I shouldn't be looking for the McDonald's personally if I'm a McDonald's customer, because I can't get the thing that I go to McDonald's for.
And there you divide. That's the division between how mentally you've had to deal with what you've done and virtually how I look at it by saying, you know what, it's okay, because locally I sold McDonald's to the local people that don't eat beef coming to my McDonald's. If an international traveler comes in, not to expect that they're going to get a beef burger in India. Okay. But by the same token, if they want the knowing that there is, as to your point, clean beds, clean function, clean whatever, I have those. I have clean bathrooms. I have standardization of product, and I have standardization of branding. That value might be enough for me to go there. So it's a halfway point. Huh?
And I hear what you're saying. What I'm saying is, I think you've got multiple different types of customers, and you have to understand that when you're picking up customer A over here, you may be losing customer B over there, and may have to make a decision as a company to say, is that a reasonable trade-off to make? I completely agree with you that sometimes I think the brands don't do a good job of deciding when they're actually making a reasonable trade-off or not. I wouldn't dispute that at all. I am saying, if you're a part of a brand, why are you part of that brand? And if the point is, well, I want these benefits, but I never have to take on these responsibilities, you don't really belong in that brand either.
And that's where I say you can't satisfy everybody.
But I agree with that.
Sure. No, and you have to make a decision, because let's say
you have to make a decision.
You're a luxury hotel group, and you decide one of our brand standards is 24-hour room service. And then you go, well, what about the resort in the Maldives or something? So it's like, no, that's not necessary, right? If full American, we're giving people big dinners, they don't want, and let's say the standard is full menu, 24-hour room service, custom off the menu capabilities do it, which some hotels, that's what they do, and it's fantastic, right? But all of a sudden, you have to start making decisions to say, damn it, owner in the Maldives, you have to go provide that and have somebody sitting around not doing anything all night, every day, or lose them possibly and say, no, we aren't going to do that. Well, then you've got to get out of the group. Yeah, right? Then something's got to give. But then how important is that? And at some point, you get down to we've watered down the brand standards to the point where there's nothing that's unique, and it's all just kind of the lowest common denominator, and that's where they run into problems. And then they start sacrificing those because it's like, well, let's keep them in the fold, and then you wind up with the classic IHG, whatever, every X-year purge of or now it's, you aren't, Starwood did it, right? Hey, congratulations, you've been promoted to 4 points.
But yes, to keep the movie analogies going, that is the difference between Siths and Jedis. Siths deal in absolutes, absolute branding. You must absolutely do what we tell you to do as a brand, compared to the Jedi, who are like, it's a different planet. Let's do different planet stuff.
It's a compliance. It's a compliance issue. It's a compliance and motivation issue, Lauren. I think that's there's plenty of room for individual individualization in the Sith world, right? You can have a double-ended lightsaber. That's okay.
Even
You
that
don't have to have one. But
hang on,
yeah,
even that very statement where I say that only a Sith would deal in absolutes, even that statement is an absolute, which what we want is Sith. So there you go.
Right.
There you go.
And Lauren, I've always said there's two types of people who in this world. There are the people who believe there are two types of people, and the people who don't. I am definitely the type who believe there are more than two types of people.
I am of the great Jedi
Everything.
mind, hence my name. I'm a balance between two. I believe that there's time for absolute, and there's a time that you have to go over and be flexible. But yes,
no, my point is it's a spectrum, and you have to decide what's appropriate for what your brand is. I always go back. This is an old expression. It may be as old as Robert. I'm not sure, but
we'll see. I'll be the judge.
I think it was David Ogilvy who said a brand is a promise, right? And so to me, it always comes back to, are you delivering on that promise? There may be lots of ways to do that. What was that, Adele?
They're not.
Right. And if you're not,
I've been harping on this one experience where it was just like the brand promise is so millions of dollars in advertising and just fail on execution. I'm sorry.
Oh, and no, you're right. It's the worst, right? But how guests define, did you deliver on that promise, varies. And so you have to say, are we making sure that when we're saying we're going to allow, a property, I don't know why I'm defending the brands. Again, most of my clients are independents. But my point is, if you say you are X and that X has a promise associated with it, you cannot deviate from that, or else that's why you're going to have a problem with people having problems with your brand, right? I mean, that's the issue. It's a case of what allows you to extend the promise and what is something that varies from the promise. If you're extending the promise, that's one thing. If you're varying from the promise, that's a very different thing.
yes, I agree. I know. For me, it's a matter of boy, wow. Honestly, and I mean this in all sincerity, I have thoroughly enjoyed today's discussion. Honest to goodness. I mean, doing these clubhouses and so forth. Adele, you're on there. Dean, you're on there. Robert, I don't know how often you're on there. I know Tim's there, but he doesn't take notifications, even though I keep inviting him to the party. But I use his name in vain. Hey, Tim might show up. Show up with us.
And me too. Yeah. Without authorization, you will be hearing from my legal team.
There's no trademark on your name, Mr. Cole Rock Cheetah. Anyway, so with that in mind, I do want to be mindful of the fact it is around 2 hours for us, and I do so agree with you, Tim, on so many levels. But as I think I know that I put on my inner ed, or I don't know, but I love, and I think most people from the feedback I get love when we actually just flip the coins around and look at what angles are from what. Everything I said, I believe in to a point, but I believe that there is margin always to the other side of that conversation.
Same, by the way.
Yeah, it just, but it always is absolutely thoroughly enjoyable to dive in and just be like, no, let's dig our heels in on this one a bit. And just say, what if we push it a little harder? So
I just feel bad for Adele and Dean not being able to get a word in edgewise today.
I just enjoyed listening. Listen and learn.
It's all this is high school. They're standing on the sidelines going, fight, fight, fight.
Exactly.
Dean and I will talk about TripAdvisor Plus next week.
Yeah, we'll because you know what? It's a constant unfolding discussion. What we talked about last week is not the same as the week before. It won't probably be until the next week of. So with that in mind, I just, if we can just go around real quick. Mr. Dean, since you've been so chatty and you never let us get in a word edgewise, a little bit about you and how to find you.
Sure. So I specialize in meta search marketing. Basecamp Meta was formed last year to help as an educational resource to teach hoteliers and digital marketers alike how to run meta search programs. Also, metasearchmarketing.com. So if you don't want to teach somebody how to run it, hire somebody to run it. I can come in there and run that campaign for you, as well as work with you if you're a very small hotel. We've heard a lot about Google's free organic meta search. Now is the time to take advantage of that. If you are that small 10-room property in Omaha or some tertiary market, we can make that happen for you. And that's what we do. And by the way, I just want to say to what you were saying earlier, it's what I love about this forum is that we can disagree with each other and have intelligent conversations about it. That's fantastic.
No, I totally with that. Adele, please, you and what you do and where do people find you?
Adele Gutman. I am an expert, maybe the authority on how to get great reviews. We had the highest rated guest satisfaction levels of any luxury hotel brand at the company I was with for 20 years. I banged my head against the wall many times learning how to do it, and I have unlocked the secrets, and I love to share them. It is an unbelievable way to attract business to your hotel. Keep the business you have. Fantastic, true loyalty, not a membership loyalty, but true from the heart loyalty. And it also is fantastic to build that culture, not just for the guest experience, but for the employee experience. I love to share my methods with you, the 5-star review process. So go to adelegutman.com, follow me on the Hospitality Reputation Marketing Podcast. And I just had my very first Clubhouse room this morning, and I had so much fun, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yay.
So please follow me on Clubhouse.
Hey, did you put it under Hospitality Marketing Club?
No, because I wasn't a member yet. It took you a while, but next time I will do it with you.
Anybody? Okay, good. Yeah, because no, I want to ride your coattails.
I couldn't get it in, but next time,
All right.
yes.
Mr. Robert Cole, what is it? No, I'm sorry, but
I wanted to plug Adele's approach. It's actually 4 steps. It's strategic, integrated, total hospitality, and it's SIF. And that's her approach to the.
So we meet. We have discovered the SIF.
I love it.
No.
Thank you, Robert.
Rock Cheetah does weird stuff. I don't know. I do a lot of analysis. I work with a number of groups. Right now, I'm working with someone in the group space. I'm working with a SPAC that's raising couple $100 million. I do a lot. I'm working on a couple things with Focusrite, which are very interesting in terms of analysis of what's going on in the industry. And I do stuff like this. So I do a lot of analysis type things and need a lot of analysis. So
newsletter that people can sign up for.
And I also do a newsletter that comes out around Friday-ish sort of thing. It's a number of interesting topics which we didn't cover here. But that's okay. So, but you can subscribe at bit.ly.com/rockcheetah, all lowercase, and receive that.
No. Bit.ly.com.
Or bit.ly/rockcheetah. Thank you. No.com.
Yeah.
bit.ly/rockcheetah, all lowercase. Sorry, Lauren, you do it much better than I do.
No, it's all good for that.
That's why you need to outsource your marketing.
Dude, Robert, I got to tell you, for a brief glimpse there, it looked like you were looking out over the void when we asked you what you did. Like,
oh boy, I don't know.
Looking at Adele.
Hey, yeah. Actually, my one claim to fame is that you look at my Rock Cheetah website, which was developed in 2012, and really, I still have needed to update it. It is mobile friendly and things like that, but hey, Google.
Sorry, gotta go.
Google Web Vitals and things like that. I'm at 97% on mobile and desktop on the old crickety rackety red website. So anyway,
Mr. Tim, for all things omnipotently knowledgeable and foreseeing portents and crystal ballishness that you do.
Well, I was going to say, I also follow Robert's approach of strategic hospitality intelligence technology, which is, of course, oh, wait, never mind.
Same letters, just reshuffled.
Clouded the dark siders.
My name is, of course, Tim Peter. You can find me at timpeter.com. I'm Tim Peter on most social channels. We help hotels with marketing, distribution, and basically how do you put more heads in beds and keep your costs low while doing it? How do you be more effective at actually bringing guests to you for the long term? We are celebrating our 10th year this year. And I have to say, my clients are everything to me. They are, I am the luckiest guy in the world because I have the best clients in the world because I get to work with fantastic people in the industry who make me smarter and better at what I do every single day. But you can find me at timpeter.com. I'm Tim Peter on most social channels. I'm TC Peter on Twitter because I was an idiot when Twitter came out. But otherwise, you can find me everywhere else as Tim Peter.
And Tim says that about his clients because he's from New Jersey, and if he doesn't
And
say
contract
that,
renewal's coming up, and no.
if he doesn't say that, he winds up with heads in his bed, which is not
Yeah.
pleasant. So
Oddly enough, I have, in the 10 years that I've been here, I've had exactly 2 clients in the Metro New York region. In all the years I've done this, everybody else is outside of New York.
Wow.
Interesting.
that's because Adele has been telling stories about you.
Yeah. Okay.
Lauren.
Tim, actually, everybody, I got to get back with you individually because we're ready to launch our hospitality channel on Roku, Apple TV, Google, and Amazon. That's going to be starting in April. And I want to make sure that you're all well represented in that foray. But anyway, that's another sidebar conversation. But that does announce the fact that we are launching the channel in April, which is the hospitality channel. It's a subscription channel for those people that want to keep up with the dialogue that we do in another format and in context. But with also that, we also have other things to talk about, which is our Clubhouse app exposure. We do that Monday through Thursdays at noon Eastern. It's an open forum dialogue that we do. I know that Ed and Stuart, Edward St. Andrews and Stuart Butler, do an 8 a.m. coffee talk version of that, also under Hospitality Marketing Club. Adele, once you connect it, it'll be yours as well. I do use Tim and Robert's name in vain consistently as being, they might show up. Just come on anyway. Just show up anyway. Robert might be here. Tim might be here. So please just join the group. But anyway, so that happens everything on Clubhouse if you don't have the app. If you need an invite, please let me know. I'll be happy to go over and send. I have a handful of invites still. So if you need one, just let me know. I'll ask silly things like your phone number, which I won't use for anything other than just sending you the invite. I'll destroy it afterwards. Also, for archives of this show and all previous shows, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for show number 294 for this. We also do a hospitality marketing podcast. Adele does a hospitality reputation management podcast. Tim has an amazing podcast. Robert he has nothing. Don't tell me where Robert.
I chisel that newsletter into
yes
granite.
In Sanskrit you use the mud
things, and then it gets that's why it's sometimes a little late. It's got to get translated into digital.
So all of that, plus we also have a hospitality sales podcast. There's a hospitality revenue management podcast with Lily Markerman, who is working her little butt off, I guess. She'll be joining us in a couple of weeks, I think, back onto the show. We also have a dean who left, has his hospitality meta search podcast. Lots of information, lots of resources. Hope you take advantage of them, because just like this is amazing. Honestly, I love the conversation. It makes me think, which is the greatest thing of all this. Rather than just talking about it, it makes me think about it. And I truly, truly thank you all so much for giving me that opportunity to kind of, it's therapy in a lot of ways. But with that, thank you everyone for your time today. Thank you everyone on the channels today. And we look forward to seeing everyone at 11:30 a.m. Eastern next week on Friday.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye. Well, I got to go lay in some groceries.